would like to read to you from Genesis, the 28th chapter. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. When Jacob woke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Oh, through the month of September, we have been walking through the book of Genesis. And wherever you go in Genesis, Jesus is popping up there in some way. And we're looking particularly at Jacob this morning. And want to think to you just a little bit about stairways, that it shows up here and it showed up in the gospel reading. And this is a picture from my family. So if you can read really well, you'll see that on the left is the postcard that my grandfather, Bill Duncombe, my mom's dad, sent from out by Rapid City, South Dakota, where he was homesteading, back to Frederica, Iowa, to encourage Myrtle Linfield to come and join him in paradise. So you can see his wagon and his team and that little tar paper shack. That was the homestead. That was paradise. And she said yes. And so she got on a train and she made it out there. And within a couple years, Bill and Myrtle had this beautiful little boy named Bill. And fortunately, several years later, they had my mom. Your history does not start with you. Your story does not begin with you. It has deep roots. And oddly, in one sense, as much as that matters to me, in one sense, your history doesn't matter. Because you can't do anything to change your roots. But you can influence everything about your future. You can influence everything starting with today. And the fruit of your life, your story. So it's really important to know if you're on the right stairway. I mean, that was March 24th, 1909. That was a little while ago. So last month, I went to South Dakota, and my brother is an engineer, so he sent me wonderful, precise directions on how to find Grandpa's homestead. So as far as I know, I'm the first descendant to go there in 115 years. He said you drive down Interstate 90 to exit 78, New Underwood, and go 8.6 miles north from the center of the freeway to 219th Street. Well, I got there and there was no road sign, so I overshot it. But I came back and I found a mailbox that said 219th Street, and then go a mile and a half east on the dirt. And, the car didn't have tenths of a mile, but I thought, okay, if I go, I'm going 30 miles an hour, so a mile and a half will take 3 minutes. So I drove 3 minutes, and that's where I ended up, at that corner. And it was, pasture on one side and a cornfield on the other side. The cornfield was actually Grandpa's homestead. It did not look like Iowa corn. A little bit scrawny. But it was corn, and I looked at this fence post, and I thought, it's possible that my grandpa set that fence post in the ground. It's really dry out there. I doubt it would last 116 years or whatever it is, but that's possible. The story of your family goes back. And this morning, as we're looking at Jacob, we see the story of a family. We see Jacob, running away from his brother Esau because his brother Esau has threatened to kill him. That's why he finds himself out in this field using a rock for a pillow, because he doesn't want to get murdered by his brother. And he flees from Israel to Syria, and he's there for 20 years. That was not plan A for his life, but that's what's happening, and God is going to use it. And God meets him in this, time of fear and desperation and running away and anxiety. And God, what does God tell him? I am the Lord your God, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. He gives them the promise of family. Jacob doesn't know how that's going to work. Jacob is going to have at least 12 sons and a daughter. He is going to be richly blessed with family. And 3,800 years later, you can still go meet Jacob's family, can't you? Anytime you're talking with a Jew, you're talking with Jacob's family. You go to the country of Israel, and it's a daily family reunion. 3,800 years later, it's pretty remarkable. God blessed his family. I can't go and claim that corn, can I? Out of that cornfield? It's not mine. That ended. But we do leave a legacy, and God promised Jacob this incredible legacy. God told him, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. People in northwestern Iowa are going to be blessed by your offspring, Jacob. Jacob couldn't have pictured that, could he? But that's why we're here this morning, because Jesus came through Jacob. And 3,800 years later, the promise is still true. What an incredible legacy. And God works a legacy in anybody who's willing to be used. You are leaving a legacy wherever you go. I had a strange moment at the Clay County Fair. I went to the Best Nutty Bar stand over by the branding iron. That's the one where Troy Rosendahl manages, and he lets me volunteer. I think they're wonderful. And I said hi to a lady in there, and I had my name badge, a couple that was working with Troy, and she looked at my name badge, and I think he had mentioned me, because I had mentioned the Nutty Bar stand in the paper, and she said, do you know Mona, Iowa? And I said, yeah, I grew up there. It's a town of 50 people back then. Now it's shrunk to 35. And I said, so, how do you know, Mona? She said, oh, we live in St. Ansgar, so that's where I went to school. And I said, oh, okay, so what's your last name? She said, Neerhoff. I said, I didn't know any Neerhoffs. And her husband looked at my name badge, and he said, Ben Unseth, you're a trumpet player. I've never met the man. Said, but how do you know? He said, well, I was band director in St. Ansgar. Said, you were never my band director. Maybe you had my brother. And he said, no, I never did. At which point I was more confused. And he said, I came to St. Ansgar in 1975, and I met Mr. Hoosman, who was my middle school band director, and Mr. Hoosman told me, you came too late. The Unseth boys have left. 50 years later, that sticks in his mind. You are making an impact on everybody around you when you don't even think about it. And a year from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, you are making an impact on the people around you and on your community. And our church is making an impact on our community, and it comes through you and me. And we want to be like Jacob. We want people to be blessed by God through the influence that we have on their lives. We want to leave a legacy of the good news of Jesus. And that is an incredible opportunity that we have. So God promised Jacob family. He promised him this incredible legacy far beyond what we get to have, as Messiah was coming through him. God also promised Jacob his presence and protection in his life. God told him, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place. It's like Ellie told us this morning. You can't go anywhere that you're not with God. You may feel lonely, but God is with you wherever you go. Jacob woke up and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. And that's true for you and me. If we're sitting in class and life is hard, or if you're out by your locker, or if you in your backyard and you feel like everybody's abandoned you, surely the Lord is with you. Even if you're not aware of it, he is with you. And then there's this mystery in Jacob's encounter with God. Jacob has this dream, and what does he see? Jacob had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And what in the world does that mean? He understood that there's a way to God, but we get to understand more of what God was communicating to Jacob there. God was looking forward to Jesus. Because when Jesus comes 1,800 years later, what does he say? He says, very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God descending and descending on the Son of Man. So when Jacob sees this stairway to heaven, this ladder up to heaven, it's pointing to Jesus. Jesus is the way from whatever lousy circumstance I find myself in to heaven. That's what Jesus came to do. He came to bridge the gap between you and God. Doesn't matter how wide that gap seems. If the chasm seems impossible to cross, Jesus is that bridge. He is the stairway from your circumstances to heaven. And Jesus wants us on the right way. And he makes it fairly plain. What does Jesus say? He says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You can't build a stairway to heaven. You can't buy a stairway to heaven. But Jesus is that stairway to heaven. Jesus is the way for you and me to the Father. And he invites us, and he gives us this beautiful promise. And I had not even thought about this until I stumbled on it this week. Those are the wrong verses, I think. I don't think it's Acts 10:43. I think it's 13:39. Jesus says all the prophets testify about, Paul tells about Jesus. All the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. That's the promise of Jesus. All the prophets, that's why we look back to Genesis. All the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. And we are invited to Jesus this morning. Today is the day of salvation, God promises. And the question is, am I on the right stairway? And I discovered how to get on the wrong stairway when I visited New York City. They have these wonderful subways under New York City. And they're great for getting around. You can go anywhere. And you get on a stairway and you go down to the subway. But the tricky part is there are multiple levels. and you're in a hurry because you got somewhere to get to, and this sign says go to this one, and this sign says go to that one. And so I went down the stairway, and I got on the train, and I looked up at the sign on the side of the car, and I discovered I was going that way when I was supposed to be going that way. I was sincere. I got on a good train, and I was on the wrong stairway for where I wanted to go. And Jesus says that the way is broad that leads to destruction, but the way is narrow that leads to life. He says, I can wander down the wrong way. Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. So we're going to celebrate communion in a few minutes. And Jesus invites us to come to him. Jesus says, come to me. He promises everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. He invites you and me to meet, to find this stairway to heaven that Jacob saw dimly and Jesus brings fully. It's for you and for me. Amen.